and 13. I think one of you still haven't submit chapter 12 and 13, okay? But I'm not sure who is the one who already submit. Okay, so we continue to class first. Okay, we will discuss about chapter 11 first, since I already marked it. I just marked it. Chapter 11. Okay, I think you can see my screen, right? I'll show it. Yeah, I think I'm showing it. Oh, I haven't shown it, sorry. Okay, so let me explain to you some of the a small mistake that you had done. For this one, which is not involved in removing the oxygen debt after a human has been exercising. So the B, C, D will be answer. The B, C, D, okay? I'm presenting, right? I think I'm presenting. Means that when you doing the vigorous exercise, what happens is your muscle cell will increase for their energy demands. So if they increase their energy demands, means that they need more oxygen supply to the muscle cell. And then throughout this process, right, due to the insufficiency of the oxygen, it will lead to the respiration switch from the aerobic become anaerobic. Okay, because you have an insufficient oxygen supply. So it causes the aerobic, initial aerobic, right? They switch become the anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration is referred to the respiration that happens without the oxygens, right? So there will be the lactic acid fermentations. Okay, I think you still remember about the equation, right? Which is the glucose. In the absence of the oxygens, then they will become lactic acid. They will produce the lactic acid and the energy. So B, C, D is the answer, because after you produce the lactic acid, right, you need to break down the lactic acids. So how you able to break down the lactic acids? You will transport the lactic acids from the muscles to the blood and then reach the liver. So at the liver there, they will break down the lactic acids, okay? Then lactic acid will convert, become the carbon dioxide and the water. So even after you just stop exercise, right? You just stop exercise, but your breathing rates and your heart rates is still going at the higher rate than the normal. Okay, means that you have a deeper breathing and a faster heart rates, even though you just stop the exercise. Okay, because that you just stop the exercise, right? Your body still have the lactic acid. So in order to remove away the lactic acids, they need to require additional oxygen supply. So that's why you need to your heart rate, right, need to be continue maintain at a faster rate, so they can get in more oxygen to supply into your body cell. So this A will not be the answer. Okay, aerobic restrictions alcohol in the liver actually is not process. It's not process involved in the removing of the oxygen debt after the human has been exercising. So A would not be the answer. I mean A is not the process involved in the oxygen debt. So A is the answer. Okay, for this one, A is the answer. And then for this, and then one thing you need to know is, whenever you want to do the inhalations or inspirations, means that you inhale the air, the oxygen that will get into your respiratory tracts. So what will happen, right? If you do the inspirations, 吸气, okay, your thoracic cavities, I mean your volume of thoracic cavity, they will increasing, right? Means that they will expand their ribcage, become like this. Initially, it become like this, right? Like this, and then become like this. Okay, they are actually expand their ribcage. So how they can expand their ribcage? They want to expand their ribcage is because that they want to do the inspirations. Okay, because they want to, they want to reduce the pressure by increasing the volume. So that's why if you want to expand your ribcage, right, your ribcage will be moved outwards and upwards. So what happens is your ribcage, right, there will be the intercostal muscle between the ribcage. Okay, so the intercostal muscle between the ribcage, right, they will do what? They will do the contractions from the outside. Okay, so your external intercostal muscle, which is pointing out at the outside, they will contract. Okay, they will go from the relaxed stage to the contracted state. So if they contract, right, they can allow the ribcage to to push outwards. Then when the external intercostal muscle, they contract, means the internal intercostal muscle, they will tend to be relaxed. So external contracts, internal relax, will cause the ribcage to move outwards and outwards. Okay, do you get me? If you do the inspiration, you inhale it, right? When you inhale the air, you can feel right, the ribcage is moving outwards and outwards. So how can we do this? You just allow your external intercostal muscle to contract, internal intercostal to relax. Because this intercostal muscle, right, is referred to the intercostal muscle, which is found within the ribcage, which is like this. Okay, just imagine, right, this is the ribcage. And then the ribcage, right, there will be a lot of like muscle, okay? So for example, you have this muscle layer within the ribcage. I'm not sure, do you eat this kind of food before or not? The pork ribcage, okay? Very tasty, yeah. So on the pork ribcage, right, you can see, right, there's muscle. There's muscle between the ribcage bone. Okay, so this is required as the external intercostal muscle, and then inside, there will be the internal intercostal muscle. It will something like this. So the blue color will be the outside, and the green color will be inside. Okay, which is the internal intercostal muscle. So whenever you want the ribcage to move outwards, right, this muscle, they will contract. They will contract. They will become like this. Like this. Once the muscle contract, what happens is the muscle contracts, so the length will be the length will be shortened. Contractions will cause the length of muscle to reduce in their length. Okay, this one you can take notes. Contractions means that when the muscle fiber undergo contractions, the whole muscle fiber will become shorter and thicker. It will cause the muscle fiber to contract. So once they contract, what happens is they become shorter and thicker. So you can see, right, the length actually, they become shorter already. Okay, then the internal intercostal muscle, right, now they relax. When the muscle relax, what will happen? They will become longer and thinner. The internal intercostal muscle will become longer and thinner. So during inspirations, because of contractions of the external intercostal muscle and relaxations of the internal intercostal muscle. But however, when inverted, when doing the aspirations, when you're trying to exhale the air outside, so it means that the whole volume thoracic cavity, right, the volume of thoracic cavity, they will be reducing to increase the pressure. So what will happen is the internal intercostal muscle, now they will contract. External intercostal muscle, now they will relax. So it will cause the ribcage to push inside. Okay, to push inside. So that's it, C. Okay, and then for this one, change in the air pressure take place in the lung during the complete cycle of breathing. So they ask you which point on the diagram, which are the ribs begin to be lower. So you can just imagine that when you try to lower down your ribs, right? Lower down the ribs, okay? You are actually trying to do what? You are actually trying to request. Maybe I can refer the notes here. Okay. Last time we talked about the chapter. Yeah. Okay, I show you better to have a recap of the thing that we studied before. See, so during inhalation, what happened is inhalations will cause the ribcage to move outwards and outwards. That's why inhalations, they cause the external intercostal muscle to contract. Then the internal intercostal muscle, they will relax. So during the exhalation, right, they will cause the ribcage to move downwards and inwards. So when they're moving inward, I mean they are moving inside. So they will cause the internal intercostal muscle. Now they will contract. So once they contract, right, they will push the muscle to inside, to the inner directions, So external intercostal muscle, they will relax. Okay, so for this one, when you try to lower down your diaphragms, like in this, okay, means that your diaphragm contracts. Diaphragm contract to become flattens. Okay, flattens means that they will push down the diaphragms. They will move down. So once they move down, right, actually they are trying to increasing the volume. Okay, so for this diagram, which are begin to be lower, begin to lower. So when you look back about this picture, right, we will try to lower down the ribs. Okay, which is the ribs, they are move downwards and inwards. Lower down means that the ribs are moved back to their positions. Okay, move downward and inwards, lower. You're not raising up your rib cage, right? If you raise up your rib cage, they will be pushing outwards and outwards. But now you are lower down. Lower down means that you're moving downwards and inwards. And this is happen during exhalations. So exhalations, what will happen? Yeah. So the answer is A. It's because that when you try to lower down your ribs, right, it causes pressure to increase in the sudden. Means that you just lower down your rib. You're just trying to request reducing your volume of the thoracic cavity. So to increase the pressure inside cavity. So how we can do this? You need to lower down your rib cage. Lower down is equivalent that you are actually doing this. You are actually, we call it moving your rib cage downward and inwards. So that's why once you lower down your rib cage, you're actually reducing volume. So if you reduce volume, right, later it will cause an increase in the pressure. So that's it. A. You're starting from this here. From the point A, you just lower down your rib cage. So you're able to reduce your volume, increase the pressure. So that's why the pressure will increase until here. Which is here. So the answer is not B. It's because that B is a spot. B is a spot that they have a very, very high pressure. They have a highest point of pressure. So after that, after B, right, the pressure, they will decline rapidly. Okay, they will decline rapidly. So this means that maybe the inspirations take place. Inspirations will cause the increasing in the volume but reducing the pressure. So the answer is A. Means that they just lower down their rib cage. It will cause the reducing volume and increase pressure inside the cavity. So the pressure will increase. So another question is this. Okay, for this one. Human gas exchange system, right? And then you're unsure about this PQR, okay? Your answer state telling that the Q is a capillary wall. But to be honest, Q is not a capillary wall. Q is an alveolus wall. Because this thing, right? This is a sac found inside the alveolus. So if you enlarge the image, right, it will be something like this. Something like this. This is the alveolus, okay? A alveolus. And then this will be the blood capillary. So Number Q will be referred to the alveolus wall, which is also one cell thick. Alveolus wall is one cell thick. Okay, I hope you still remember. One cell thick means that this alveolar wall is very, very thin. It's a very thin wall, just same to the capillary wall. Capillary wall, they're also very thin. Okay, so the R itself is just a capillary. Because the capillary, right, they can closely associated with the alveolus. Okay, this P is referred to bronchiole because bronchiole later they'll moving to the alveolus. So the answer is 4. And then for this one, which structure has a higher concentration of the carbon dioxide? The answer will belong to the void pulmonary artery. Okay, do you still remember that pulmonary artery is the only one artery which is they don't carry out the oxygenated blood, but they carry the oxygenated blood from where? Pulmonary artery, what they do is they will carry the deoxygenated blood from the heart itself, okay, from the right side of the heart. So your blood just coming out from the right side of heart. That means, right, the bloods now they have a very higher concentration of carbon dioxide. So this pulmonary artery, they just carry the deoxygenated blood with a lot of carbon dioxide inside. So they will pass through the alveolus, right? They just pass through the alveolus. So on this alveolus, right, I mean on this spot A, the exchange of the gas that will occur means that they will release the carbon dioxide and then they will get in the oxygen. So now they will become the oxygenated blood already, okay? They become oxygenated blood, which is on here. So D will be the oxygenated blood. So now the pulmonary veins, they can transport these oxygenated blood and go back to where? Go back to the hearts. Go back to the hearts. To the left side of the hearts. Left side of hearts. This one pulmonary artery, they are just coming from the right side of the heart. So remember that pulmonary artery, they have a higher concentration of the carbon dioxide because they just originated from the right side. And then for this one, both of you write the same answer. Okay, so this one, the answer is A. What caused the pressures in the lungs to decrease during breathing? So if the pressure inside the lung to decrease means that the volume increase. Okay, the volume increase. So how can you increase the volume overall? Your answer is expansion of lung causing decrease in the volume? No. Okay, because if you want to decrease in pressure, it means that you need to increase in volume. Increase in the thoracic volume, thoracic cavity volume. Okay, so how you able to increase the thoracic cavity volume to reduce the pressure? So you need to do is you need to allow your ribcage to just move outwards and outwards. So you need to allow the contraction of the external intercostal muscle and also the diaphragm. So once the diaphragm contract, right, they'll become flattened. They'll become flattened muscle. So they can create a very, very large cavity. And then for this one, starting of the inspirations, the answer is C. Okay, inspirations. When you, I mean, if you want to inspire the air, right, you need to reduce the volume. Oh, sorry, you need to increase the volume, okay? Increase the volume. You need to increase the volume and also you need to reduce the pressure. So how can you do this? Also, you allow your external intercostal muscle to contract. So once they contract, they're able to push the ribcage to outside. And then your internal intercostal muscle, they will relax. So the whole volume will increase. And then how you pay off the oxygen debt, which is built when you are having exercise, having a vigorous type of exercise. So means that after that, you need to oxidize the lactic acid. So what you can do is you can transfer the lactic acid to the livers and respire aerobically so they can break down, become carbon dioxide and the water. And also heart rate stay high to remove the lactic acid from the muscle. So your heart rate, right, just continue to beat in the higher rate. So they can pump the bloods. Okay, so means that they can pump more bloods. So if they can pump more bloods, right, they can allow the lactic acid just go back to the liver from the muscle. Okay, so by this way you can remove excessive lactic acid. And then for this one, the answer is donkey. Why is not tree? Okay, this is mathematical questions. Okay, see. I hope you still remember how to write the cellular albedo restrictions, the equations. Okay, so when you want to do the cellular albedo restriction, what kind of the substance you need to require? And that's why when you want to do the cellular albedo restrictions, first you need to require what kind of thing? To produce energy. So remember, you need to require the glucose, which is this one, C6H12O6. And also together with the oxygens, right? You need the oxygens to oxidize the glucose. And then you become what? You become the carbon dioxide and also the water. And also you release energy. And then please don't forget to balance your equations. So how can you balance the equations? You have 6 carbons here. Then you should have 6 carbons at here. Balance it with the 6. Then you have how many? You have about 6 oxygen at here. And then another one is here too. So if you want to balance it, just simple. Just add 6 and 6. So after you calculate, you can see the left side and right side. They have an equal number of the carbon, hydrogens, and the oxygens. Just an equal number. So what happened is, how many molecules of carbon dioxide are being produced from the respiration of the 3 molecules of glucose? So you can see, right, this is 1 glucose molecule. 1 glucose molecule, they already can produce about how many carbon dioxide? 6. 1 glucose molecule, right, they can produce about 6 carbon dioxide based on the equations. So if you have 3 glucose molecule, at the end you get 18 number of the carbon dioxide, 6 times 3. And then which role show the action of muscle during inspiration? So answer is donkey. Okay. So the key point that you need to remember is when you want to do the inspirations, you need to increase the volume, reduce the pressure. So that's why you need to allow the external intercostal muscle to contract. So when they contract, they will just push the direction to outside. And then for this one, during inspirations, the process reset takes place as it's boil. Okay, so initially that if you want to do the inspirations, first you need to allow the external intercostal muscle to contract first. See? And then the diaphragm to move down. Okay, means that the diaphragm they will lower down. Okay, they will lower down to increase the volume. And the next one is volume. Now they will increase due to the actions by the intercostal muscle and the diaphragm muscle. So it forces the air rush into the lung. Oh, sorry, it will cause the pressure decrease and then force the air just rush into the lung. And then for this one, different stage in the process of aspiration. So that is donkey. So it means that you need to allow your diaphragms and the intercostal muscle to relax first. And then the ribcage, they just move downward and inwards. And then the volume of the thorax, they will decrease and pressure increase. Air is pushed out of the lung. Okay, finish. We're discussing about chapter 11. So you may continue to attempt the chapter 12 and 13, and then we will discuss in next class. So back to the notes last week. Back to the notes last week. Okay. Back to the notes last week. And then last week we talked until pupil effect. Sorry, let me close the door first. Wait for a moment. Okay, last week we talked until the eyes. Okay, I think we stopped until here, right? The pupil effect. I mean the pupil reflex. Okay, we continue about this pupil reflex. Okay, you can see, right? The pupil, they can reflex. Depends on the light concentrations. If you are being I mean you are, if you are present in the dim light conditions, right? Dim light means that the surrounding will be very, very dark. Okay, there'll be less light. So because it's dim light. So your pupil, what they do is they will dilate. 瞳孔放大, okay, they will dilate. So why do people they will dilate? They dilate is because that they want to allow more light just enter into the eyes as possible. So pupil will dilate to allow more, more light to enter. So what happens during the bright lights? The pupil will just constrict, okay, in order to prevent too much light entering into the eyes and damage the retina. So your pupil able to do the contractions or dilatations to control the amount of the eyes enters into, amount of the light enters into the eyes. So this we call it the reflex actions. And then it's a kind of the voluntary or involuntary actions. You think this pupil reflex, right? You think it's a kind of voluntary or involuntary actions? It's a kind of the, oh, what happened to my? Okay, it's a kind of the involuntary actions. Let me show you a picture. Okay, pupil reflex, right? You can see from the animal. Very interesting. Okay, cat eyes. Cat also, they have this kind of the reflex. So you can see the cat eyes. Let me show you. You can see that this is a pupil. Okay, so if the cat are being surrounded in the very, very bright light condition, right? The pupil will just constrict like this. They just become one line already. Okay, so if they are present, see, this is in the bright light conditions. If they are present in the dark condition, right, which is in dim light, the pupil will just dilate like this. So reflex actions is a kind of the involuntary actions. It's involuntary because you cannot control it. And then it's just a reflex, okay? It's just a reflex. And then we need to know that how our pupil able to dilate or constrict is because due to the muscle. Okay? So for information, our pupil is being surrounded by a group of muscle, which is radial muscle and the circular muscle. Radial muscle will be something like this. For example, this is the eyes. Okay, and then this is a pupil. This is a pupil, okay. 瞳孔, a pupil here. And then what happened is you have the radial muscle. Radial muscle is referred to this kind of muscle. See, this kind of muscle, which is they just run off radially. Then how about circular muscle? Circular muscle is they refer to this type of muscle, this type, which is they just surround the pupil in the circular motion. So what happened is during the dim light, the radial muscle, they will contract. You can imagine or not? The radial muscle, which is a straight line here, they will contract. So when they contract, right, they will just pull some like someone pull your pupil in the outward direction. So that's why pupil they will dilate because they can just pull like this. they're actually pulling the pupil. They just pull like this. Because the radial muscle, they contract. Okay, so when the radial muscle contract, right, the circular muscle itself, they will relax. Radial muscle contract, circular muscle, they will relax. So the pupil become dilated. So radial muscle contracts, circular muscle relax, so the pupil dilates. So it will allow more light to enter into the eyes. So this is present in the dim light, which is the dark conditions. So what happened is during in the bright lights. In the bright light, what happened is you will see, right, the eyes is not eyes. Okay, the pupil, they will constrict. Okay, so the pupil is constrict is because that now the radial muscle, they relax. So the one they pulling the pupil, right, is the circular muscle. This one. Circular muscle of the iris, they will contract. So you can see, right, now they contract. Before that is relaxed. Before it's relaxed. So now they contract. So when the circular muscle contract, right, which is this round muscle, okay, this circular shape of muscle, now they will contract. Contract means that they will reduce in their length. They become thicker. That's why the pupil, they will constricted. It will cause less less light enter into the eyes. So why your pupil able to reflect in this way in response to the bright light is because that due to the photoreceptor. The photoreceptors inside your retina, okay, you should know that you have two types of photoreceptor and both of them are located on the retina part. Where's retina? Retina is a inner layer inside of eyes. Yeah, here, retina. Okay, retina here. So retina, they have two types of the photoreceptor. One is rods, another one is cones. Okay, rods and cones. And then you should know that rods, right, they detect highlight intensity. Cones, right, they will detect color. Rods is usually, it's usually a response to the dim light conditions because rods, this one, rods. Rods is a photoreceptor. They just respond to the dim light conditions because they are very highly sensitive photoreceptor cell. They can detect. They can detect in the very, very dim and dark conditions. They can detect the light presence. So they are much more sensitive compared to the cones. So the radial muscle relax, and now circular muscle, they will take turn to contract. So pupil will constrict. It will cause less less light to enter the eyes. Okay, so you just remember about this table. Which one you contract, which one you relax, it causes a pupil side change. Okay, so dark lights means that radial muscle will contract, circular muscle, they will relax. So the pupil itself becomes increase in size. So allow more light enters. So for the bright lights, the radial muscle, they will relax. Circular muscle, they will contract. So the pupil side become very narrow. Means that they will constricting. Constrict means what? Constrict refer to the size, reducing already. They become in smaller size. So they will restrict amount of light enter into the eyes. Okay, so that's all for the pupil reflex. And then I will talk about accommodations. Okay, what's mean by accommodations? Accommodation is that how's the lens in your eyes. Sorry, I need to close it. Okay, how's the lens in the eyes? What happened is they will change in their thickness. Why the lens need to change in their thickness? Is because they need to focus to the distant object or they need to focus on the near object. This is called accommodations. This is how we're able to change the thickness of the lens. Lens is referred to this one, lens. This one, this structure is called a lens. So what the function of lens? They will cause the refractions of the light. 光被折射，折射 means that refraction. They will cause a refraction of light. So the lens itself is an elastic, and its shape, right? They can be changed when the suspension ligament attached to it become tight or loose. So means that the thickness of the lens, right, they are actually being controlled by the suspension ligaments and the ciliary muscle. Usually it's these two type of the structure. It will change the thickness of the lens. So if you want to focus on the near object, right, it's not distant, it's a near object, okay? Yeah, the near object. You need to focus the light reflects on the lens. That's why the lens now they become fatter. They increase in their thickness. Okay, they become thin. They become thick and short. Okay, short and thick. Fatter means that they become thick. Thick means that they increase their thickness. They increase their thickness, right? And then now they become shorter in the length. Okay, and that's why you need to know that whenever your muscle want to contract, right? Muscle contracts. The muscle will appear in a very shorter and thicker, shorter in the length. Means that the whole length of muscle, right, they're actually reducing because they become contract already. They become shorter. So, and then the increase in thickness. So this is what happened to the muscle whenever they do contractions. They will reducing in length, become shorter, and then they will increasing in thickness. 又短又厚, something like that. Okay, so as same as this lens. Now they become fatter. They become fatter means that they are actually increasing their thickness, right? And then now they become shorter. So what made them become like this is because that the subspecial ligament, they are slackened. Slacken means that they are loosened. They are loosened, 松弛啊, loosened. And then the ciliary muscle, right? The ciliary muscle, actually they are connected to the subspecial ligament. So ciliary muscle, they contract. Subspecial ligament, they slacken. Slacken means that something like relax. Okay? So subspecial ligament, they are not pulling away from the lens. That's why the lens, they'll become fatter now. So this will cause the light able to reflect small to focus on the near object. Okay, so just remember that lens need to increase in their thickness to able to focus on the near object. Then how about in the distant object? See, ciliary muscle contracts is because the subspecial ligament slacken. Slacken means that they don't try their best to pull the lens away already. So the lens become fatter and light is reflected more. And then how about in the distant object? So when the eye is focusing on the distant object, right, the lens overall, they become thinner. They become thinner and longer in length. And thinner. So why they become longer in length and thinner is because the suspension ligament, they stretch on the lens. They're just something like pulling your hands, right? Pulling your hands, okay? Yeah, so suspension ligament, they're just pulling away the lens. So the lens now, they become thinner because they can pull by the suspension ligament. Okay, so there will be force like here, pulling away. So the whole lens become thinner already. So when the suspension ligament, they contract and stretch, right? So it means that ciliary muscle itself, they will relax. Ciliary muscle, they will relax. So this one, light is refracted less, allowing the eyes to focus on the distant object. Okay, so this is the result. If the lens become thinner, so the ciliary muscle relax, suspension ligament, they will stretch. Thins means that the suspension ligament, they stretch on the lens. So the lens become thinner and longer. So they can reflect less light. Okay, so this is example important detail that you need to remember. Okay, and then the end. We will talk about the rods and cones, right? The rods and cones, which is a photoreceptor found inside the retina. Okay, I hope you know that. Retina is a innermost layers of our eyes. Okay, on the retina there, right, there will be a lot of blood vessel. Maybe I can show you example retina. Okay, retina on the eyes. Okay, so right in the layer, which is actual one. Let me show you the actual one, actual retina. See, this is the retina. There will be a lot of blood vessel. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so retina is the innermost layer. And then there will be a lot of, requires the, see, retina blood vessel. So a lot of photoreceptor located on this surface area. And we can see there's a fovea here. You know where's fovea? Fovea is a spot on the retina. Okay, which is at here. Fovea. This note didn't show you where is fovea. Okay, let me show the important notes. Chapter 14. Okay, let me show you this. Oh, I think it's this, another one. Sorry. So on the surface of retina, right, there will be a lot of blood vessel. And also there will be a lot of the photoreceptor. Okay, let me show you this one. See, fovea. Fovea, which is on this spot, right, they have a very high concentration of cones only. Only the cones. So this cone, they help you to detect the color light. Okay, see, this is fovea. And then you have this optic nerve. Yeah. Let me continue. Okay, so we'll finish the parts for the eyes for today. So the rods is sensitive to the dim light. The cones, right? The cones is another photoreceptor, but if compared to the rods, the cones, right, actually their sensitive to light, right, is much more lesser compared to rods. Rods are more sensitive to the light. Cones are less sensitive to the light. Because cones, their function is to what? Their function is they just helping to distinguish the different colors in the bright light. So actually they are not too sensitive to light as compared to the rods. So there are three types of the cone cell which are sensitive to the different color of light. So you can detect for the red color, blue color, and the green color. Okay, fovea is the area on the retina where almost all of the cone cells are found. And then for the rod cell, right, rod cells are found all over the retina. Okay, so you can see that this retina space, right, this retina space, there will be a lot of the cone cell. I mean rod cell, sorry, a lot of rod cell. But what happened is, except in the area where the optic nerve attached to the retina, see, there will be area that the optic nerve they just attach to the retina. So on that area, they will not have any light sensitive cell. So requires a blind spot. So here will be the blind spot. Okay, because on this blind spot, right, there will be without any photoreceptor. So blind spot on the eyes. So usually blind spot on the eyes, right, they are just located very close to the optic nerve, which is at this place. See, blind spot. Here. See the lens and the retina, and then the blind spot. So the blind spot means that they don't have any photoreceptor. So this location, right, they are just located very close to the optic nerve. Okay, so we just finished about the eyes. And then now we continue to talk about the hormones. Okay, we will enter to the hormones. Because in this chapter, we learn about what? We learn about the coordination and response. And then for your information, actually this coordination and response, right, is being controlled by two types of system. First, we know as a nervous system, right? Nervous system. Nervous system is very important system, which is they allow the neurons, which is cell, able to connect from this cell to another neuron, which is located very, very far away. Okay, so they can connect by the three types of the neuron, which is the sensory neuron, the relay neuron, and the motor neuron. So this nervous system do. So neural cell, what they do is they will help to transmit the electrical signal in form of impulse. In form of nerve impulse. So means that this nerve impulse, right, their form will be electrical. 它的形式是电流这样子的。Okay, another will be the endocrine system, which is we want to talk about for today. For the endocrine system, what they do is they will transport their informations in form of the chemical messenger or chemical signal. For example, neurotransmitter or hormones. Last week we learned about the neurotransmitter, right? We learned about the dopamines, those kind of neurotransmitter. So this neurotransmitter actually is belong to the endocrine system because neurotransmitter is a kind of the chemical substance. Okay, so this is endocrine, this is nervous system. So nervous system, I mean, you can, when you compare these two systems, right, they are a bit different, okay? So let me focus about the endocrine system first. So endocrine system, they talk about what? They talk about hormones. Yeah, hormones, okay, hormones. So hormone is a kind of the chemical signal. So this chemical signal, they can allow the cell to like contact. I mean, it's not contact. It allows the cell to connect from this cell to another cell, which is much more further away. So hormones is a chemical substance they can produce by the glands, and then they carry by the blood. Okay, so hormones, right, usually they'll produce a very, very widespread effects. Means that they will not affect only one type of organs. They can affect several type of organs. Means that they can induce change to multiple organs at the same time. So this is much more different from the nervous system because nervous system, right, you only can control one type of organ because your motor neurons is limited. They only can connect to the one type of the organ only. Okay, but this is different for the hormones. Okay, since hormone, right, they are being, since hormone they are being released to the bloodstreams. So when they reach the bloodstream, right, they can slowly diffuse to the target organs. So usually they have more than one target organs. Yeah. So they are belong to the chemical signals. They help to transmit the information from one part of organism to another and bring a change. So this is known as the endocrine system. And then in the endocrine system, right, they have a lot of endocrine glands. So this endocrine gland, right, usually they are being highly, it's very closely associated with the blood supply. Okay, because when they just produce and release the hormone, right, they will release the hormones to the bloodstream. And then the hormones, they will diffuse slowly to the bloodstream until they reach their target organ. Okay, so let's have a look on what kind of endocrine system that we have. So we have this one, pituitary glands, which is a muscle glands. So this gland is actually very famous. I think you heard about this before, right? These glands are okay. They can secrete a lot of type of the hormones. Okay, they can secrete a lot of type of hormones, and those hormones they plays a very important roles in the metabolism. So because a master gland because they produce a lot of hormones. And then the thyroid glands. Okay, thyroid glands is located at our base of neck. So these thyroid glands, right, they will produce the tyrosines. I think you heard about thyroid gland before, right? 甲状腺. They will secrete these tyrosines. Okay, for the pancreas, what they do is they can secrete the hormone, which is they can secrete the insulin and glucagon, two types of hormones. Okay, not only one type, but two types. So pancreas is very important to us. It's because the pancreas they can help to produce the insulin. So usually the diabetes person they'll be have a problem and issues in their insulin productions. Means the insulin they cannot effectively reduce the blood glucose level. That's why they will have this diabetes. So insulin is very important. And then we have the adrenal glands. Okay, where's the location of adrenal glands? Adrenal glands, right, is actually the glands they just found on the top of the kidney. Here. So the function of glands, right, they will just secrete the adrenalines. I think you heard about these hormones before. Adrenalines is referred to the 肾上激素. This one. 肾脏. Okay, you write by yourself, okay? 肾上激素, adrenaline. And then the testes, okay, they will produce a mu6 hormone, which is a testosterone. Okay, testes are apart from they will produce a mu6 hormones. Testes, they also produce sperm as well. So actually, testes, right, is the site of the sperm productions. The site of the sperm productions. And then in the female, right, they will have this ovary. So this ovary, they can produce the estrogens and the progesterone. Yeah. So those are the organs they can help to produce the hormones. And they are belong to the endocrine system. So endocrine gland, right, usually they have very good blood supply because after the organs, they release the hormone, right? After the organ release the hormones need to travel by the bloodstreams and then get into the target organs. Yeah, so this is their pathway. Okay, from the glands to the bloodstream, and then travel around the body to the target organs and bring response. Hormones will only affect cell with the target receptor that hormone they can bind to it. So this target receptor, right, usually is being located on the cell membranes or inside the cell. So if you want the hormones bind to the target receptors on the body cell, right, means that the size of the receptor must be complementary to the hormones. This one. You see this word again, complementary. 互相匹配的形状. So only the complementary structure, right, they will cause a binding. So hormone, they can produce their own effect. And then this one, liver regulate the level of hormones in the blood, and then they are transforming and break down any hormones that are in excess. Yeah. So this one is just for you to have a look. So how is the pathway of the hormone? So you can see, right, you have liver and pancreas. So those will secrete out the hormones, which is, for example, they will secrete the insulin or glucagon. Yeah. So this is from the pancreatic gland cell. So since it's the pancreatic, right, pancreatic cells, they will produce the hormones. So, for example, like in this case, they will produce the insulin. They'll produce the insulin from the pancreatic gland cell and then reach into the blood vessel, which is inside. There'll be a lot of bloodstream. So the insulin hormones, they can just travel by the bloodstream and then reach their target organ. Okay, they reach their target organs, which is this one, target cell. So this target cell, right, they have a specific receptor. Okay, so this specific receptor, right, they are just complementary to the structure of the this one, insulin. Okay, to the structure of the insulin. That's why they can induce a response. See, right, this is the insulin. So when the insulin bind to the receptor on the target cell, okay, maybe I write down here. When the insulin bind to receptor on the target cell, what will happen is they can induce a change. Okay, so take for example, when this insulin, they bind to the, for example, this is a liver cell, okay, this is a liver cell. okay, they bind to the receptor on the liver cell. So what the liver cell will do? Liver cell, they can bring a response. So liver cell, they can try to uptake more glucose, get into it. Okay, so more glucose, right, there will be uptake by the liver. So the glucose will be converted, become the glycogens. Yeah, so insulin, right, insulin, they will convert glucose. Now they become the glycogen. So glycogens, they will just store in the liver and muscle cell. In the liver and muscle. So this is how they will produce a response. Okay, adult student, can you get me? Just the hormones they are releasing from the endocrine organs. Okay, from the pancreas. So the pancreas cell, they release the hormones, which is insulin. So insulin, they will get into bloodstream. So insulin will travel along the bloodstream and then reach their target cell. So in this case, they reach the target cell, which is the liver cell. So liver cell, they have the receptor. See, liver cell, they have the receptor. Not only liver cell, but other kind of cell, for example, like muscle cell. Okay, muscle cell, they also have their receptor. So these receptors are the shape, they are just complementary to the hormones. So they can bind to it, bind together. So after the hormones, which is the hormone insulin, they bind to receptor on the target cell, which is the liver cell. They will produce a response, which is liver cell. Now they will uptake more glucose, become glycogens. So you can see, right, your hormones, they have a very specific shape. Not all target cell, they can fix to this shape. Okay, so maybe you can have a look. So for this non-target cell, for example, like ovary, for example, ovary, okay? Ovary, okay. Because ovary is totally not respond to the insulin, right? So it's a non-target cell. So that's why this is from the ovary cell. Ovary cell, their receptor cannot match to the insulin hormones. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so another thing you need to know is you need to know the functions of the hormones and how they're being produced. They're being produced from where? Where you can produce this kind of hormones. Okay, so let's talk about the adrenaline first. 肾上激素, okay. Adrenaline hormones, right, is a very powerful hormone. Seriously. Adrenaline is very, very powerful because, right, adrenaline is being produced from where? Which is from your adrenal glands, which is like on top of the kidney at this part. See, adrenal gland. It's something like cap. It's something like cap on the kidney, right? So this adrenaline is very powerful hormones. How powerful is it? Is they will help to prepare your body for the fight and flight response. Am I sharing the screen? You can see my screen?
Yeah.
I think I'm sharing. Okay, sorry. I thought my screen just disappeared. So adrenaline, the effects, right? They're able to increase the heart rate, breathing rates, and they can dilate the pupil. Another thing is, it doesn't write at here. Adrenaline can increase the blood pressure. You can help me to write here. It can help to increase the blood pressure. So adrenaline, right, they help you to prepare for the fight and flight response. For example, if you walk on the street, right, and then you're being chasing by a fierce dog. So either you want to fight with the dog, or you just run away from the dogs. Okay, for example, I think majority of people, they will choose them to run away from the dog, right? So you are running, and then dog is chasing you back. I mean, the dog is chasing your back. So you are very, very nervous, right? So that's why at this point, right, you were able to increase your heart rate and breathing rates. Okay, means like your body, they will just focus on the hearts and also the muscle contractions because you are actually running away. Okay, running require the contractions of the muscle. So it means that your muscle will increase, to increase the rate of contractions more frequently compared to the normal situations. So they require more oxygen, right? Since you increase the contraction of muscle, so they require more oxygen supply. So where you can get more oxygen means that you need to increase your breathing rate in order to get more oxygen. And then your pupil will dilate is because that they are trying to, search any possible risk surrounding you. So that's why your pupil, they will just dilate if you are in the emergency situations. Okay. And then another thing is they can try to increase the blood pressure. Okay. Okay, this is not in your level, but I just described to you only. Your blood vessel, right? Something like this. This is your blood vessel. Okay. And then I'm not sure you know that your blood pressure, right? It's not blood pressure. Okay. Blood vessel. This is blood vessel. Okay. Blood vessel. Blood vessel is referred to any kind of blood vessel. For example, the artery, veins, capillary, those are the blood vessels. So when the blood flow within the blood vessel, they are just flowing like this, okay? They actually can exert the pressures on the wall of the blood vessel. So this will create the blood pressure. When the blood flow within the blood vessels, they can exert the pressure on the wall of the blood vessel. So this is called blood pressure. Okay. So and then adrenalines, how they can increase the blood pressure is they will increase the heart rate. If you increase the heart rate, right, what will happen is you are increasing the contraction of the heart. Means that the heart rate, they can pump in the higher frequencies. For example, in the normal situation, right, when we count the heartbeat per minute, okay, heartbeat per minute is around 70 heartbeat per minute or 80 heartbeat per minute. But if you are in the emergency situation, right, your heartbeat will just increase in their rate. Maybe they become over 100 beat per minute. See, from 80 or 70 heartbeat per minute, now they become 100 or 110 or 120. They're just increasing the heartbeat. So it will cause more blood. Okay, it will cause more blood to pump away from the heart to all part of body. 就是说增加这个血的这个从这个心脏pump 出来的这个次数所以 that's why they will cause increasing in the blood volume. So by this way, right, you are increasing the blood volume to pump away from the heart to all part of body. So you are increasing the blood volume inside the blood vessel. So by this way, you can increase the blood pressure. Can you get me?
Yeah.
Okay. So adrenaline, okay, maybe I can show some picture, quite interesting picture. Because adrenaline effects. Adrenaline effects on the blood vessel. Okay. Let me talk about adrenaline effect on the blood vessel first. See, another thing is adrenaline, right? They will cause the constriction of the blood vessel. Means that this one. They will cause something like this. I don't have a good picture to show you. But it's something like this. See, means that the blood vessel, they will constrict. If they constrict, right, means that they will reduce in diameter. So you can increase the pressure. You can increase the pressure. Because I still remember that during my time of studying the veterinary medicines, because I'm graduate as vet, right? I think you know. That time I was having a surgery, okay, to a dog, and then I still remember that dog is almost dying, okay, almost dying because that the blood pressure is really reducing, okay. So what I do, I inject the adrenaline to the dogs, and then about 5 minutes ago, I think 5 minutes after, the dog's blood pressure, they will just raise back to normal. So adrenaline is a very, very powerful drug. Adrenaline is being widely used during surgery. Okay, whenever the patient is sound, they have very low blood pressure. So that's why you're trying to increase the blood pressure back. So how are you able to increase the blood pressure back? You just inject them with adrenaline. So adrenaline, another term requires what? 强心针. This one. 强心针。Okay, that's all. Remember, adrenaline increases heart rate, breathing rates, and also blood pressure. Because by increasing the heart rate, right, you're able to increase the blood pressure because you increase the volume of blood flowing inside the blood vessel. And now we talk about insulin. Okay, insulin is being produced from the pancreas, and then their role is they just want to reduce the blood glucose level. So it causes the excess glucose in the blood, right, just to be uptake by the cell. Okay, for example, like the muscle and the liver cell, and then they will need to convert back to become the glycogens and store inside. So this is insulin. So there will be another type of hormone we call glucagons. This one, okay, another type is called glucagons. So insulin and glucagons, they can work together, and then they help to maintain the balance of the blood pressure, blood sugar, okay, blood glucose level inside your body. And now we talk about testosterone, okay, it's being produced from the testes. So they just help to develop the secondary sexual characteristic in the male. Means that the male itself, that appear become more muscular due to the effect of the testosterone. Okay, so sometimes the athletes, okay, they will inject themselves with testosterone, so they can boost their activity, like that. And now about estrogen. Estrogen is being produced from the ovaries, so it's a very important hormone in the female. Okay, so this estrogen, right, they can help to develop the secondary sexual characteristic in the females and control the menstrual cycle. See, so exam, they will ask you about adrenaline. So this is actually very famous questions in the paper 4. They will ask you about how your body able to react to the adrenaline in the danger situations. So adrenaline, they will bring this fight or flight response. Okay, so what happened is, if your adrenaline gland release the adrenaline to the blood, right, you actually increase the blood glucose concentrations for increasing respiration in the muscle cell. So because now your body need to focus on to increase the heart rate and also breathing rates, okay, and also increase the muscle contractions, muscle cell contractions, so they can, they need to allow more blood glucose supply to the muscle cell, because your muscle cell, right, they are actually increasing their energy demand, so they need to allow more blood glucose supply to the muscle cell. That's why you need to increase your blood glucose concentrations. So increasing the heart rates, pulse rate means heart rates, and breathing rates. So more glucose and oxygen they can deliver to the muscle cell, and then they are actually diverting the blood flow toward the muscle, so away from the non-essential part of body such as alimentary canal. So it means that when you are in the emergency situations and under the adrenaline effects, so adrenaline, right, they will allow the blood flow focus on the vital organ. For example, heart, muscle, lungs. Okay, they will reducing the blood flow to the, for example, the alimentary canal or the reproductive system. Okay, alimentary canal is referred to the digestive system. For example, the intestine, they will reduce the blood flow to the intestine, to the liver, or to the reproductive organs, like they will reduce the blood flow to the ovary or testes, because they just want to focus on the most important thing, which is increasing your heart rate. Okay, which is supply the oxygen to the muscle cell. Yeah, so they will divert more the blood flow towards the important organs. Okay, and then they will dilate the pupil to allow more lights to reach the retina. Okay, that's all about the adrenaline. And then if you want to compare the difference for the nervous system and the endocrine system, so this is the difference. Nervous system itself is made from the nerve cell or the neurons. Okay, so neurons is found in the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system refers to the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system we refer to the spinal nerve and the cranial nerve. So neurons, usually they transmit their message in form of the electrical impulse. So actually it's an electrical signals. Okay, you also can measure it. To be honest, you can measure it. Usually it's in form of in form of the voltage. Voltage 它是一个电流来的。 Okay, so because it's electrical activity, right? So means that the speed of transmission will be very fast. And then, but the effects, right, is very short term. Even though it's very fast, but it's a short term. Then how about the endocrine system? Endocrine system, right, is referred to the endocrine glands. They will produce the hormones, which is a chemical hormone. So it's a kind of the chemical signal. So chemical signal, right, they are diffused in the bloodstream. So they need time to reach the target organs. So usually the speed of transmission, right, will be slower compared to the nervous system. The speed will be much more slower because they still need to diffuse in the bloodstream slowly, and then they will reach the target organs. So even though it's slower, right, however, their effect is longer. Requires a long-term effect. Okay, until the hormone is being broken down by the liver. So once will produce a very short-term effect for the nervous system, another one will produce a very long-term effect for the endocrine system. So here's the difference. Okay, another ones. Okay, you can add on here is nervous system, right? Okay, so their pathway is something like from where, which is from the receptor. Okay, receptor. They collect the signal. Okay, they collect the stimulus, and then they reach where? They reach the sensory neuron. So from sensory neuron, they will go to the spinal cord or brain or spinal cord relay neuron. So usually it's found in the spinal cord. And then for relay neuron, right, they will transmit the impulse to the motor neuron. So from the motor neuron, they will reach to the effector organs. Effector organs will be muscle or glands. Okay, for your information, your heart, 你的心脏, it is also a type of the effector organs. So it includes heart. Because heart is only made out of the muscle only. So this is the pathway for the nervous system. So you can see, right, very clear cut, very clear. How about in the endocrine system? So initially, it will be the endocrine glands. They will secrete what? They will secrete the hormones. Hormones, they will travel in the bloodstream by diffusions, okay? By diffusions. And then they will slowly reach their target organs. Actually, they'll bind to the receptor on the target organs. Okay, so actually this is also very specific. This response, right, is also very specific for the endocrine system. Means that the target organ, right, they need to have a very specific shape of the receptor, so they are complementary to the structure of the hormones, so they can produce a response. So if the hormones, they can successfully bind to the receptor on the target organs with a complementary shape, right, now they will produce a response. They will bring a response. Okay, but another thing is hormones, they can bind to one or more than one target organs. Means that you not only have one target organ only. For example, when you talk about the insulin, right? Insulin, they can add on the two type of organs, liver and the muscle cell. So it's considered as the multiple organs. Okay, so this requires what? It will bring a widespread effect. Widespread effect. However, in the nervous system, right, due to the motor neurons is usually limited. So means that one motor neurons, they only can connect to the one organs. They cannot, they cannot connect to more than one organs. Understand? Only connected to one organ only. So this is different between them. So that's why for the nervous system, they can produce localized response. It's not called as localized response. It's called as localized effect. Means that the effect they produce is focus on one spot only. So this is known as localized. So for the hormones, the effects, right, they can act on more than one target organs, few target organs, maybe like 3 or 4 target organs. So they can bring a very widespread effect. Yeah, that's all. There are some time. Okay. I think we can talk about how our body regulate the blood glucose level. Okay. We can start on this first. Control of the blood glucose level in our body. Okay, so our blood glucose level, right, is actually being controlled by the negative feedback mechanism. So negative feedback mechanism is actually involved on the 2 kind of hormones. One is insulin, one is a glucagon. Yeah, so both hormones, right, actually is being produced by the pancreas also. Okay, so insulin is being produced when the blood glucose level they rise. Means that when the blood glucose level they increase higher than the normal level, so it will produce the insulin. So insulin, right, their aim is they need to reduce the blood glucose level, become back to the normal level. So that's why they can stimulate the liver and the muscle cell to convert excess glucose to the glycogen to be stored. This is the insulin. So how about glucagon? Glucagon, right, is being produced when the blood glucose level is very, very low, lower than the normal range. That's why they need to increase back the blood glucose level to become the normal range. Yeah. So when the blood glucose level falls, so they will cause the liver and muscle cell now inside. Previously, right, they already store a lot of glycogen inside the liver and muscle cell. So now they need to convert the glycogen back to the glucose and then release to the blood. Yeah, so this is a cycle. Okay, so during exam, they will ask you to describe about how our body regulate the change in our blood glucose level. So you just can write based on the point. Okay, so that you can see, right, when the blood glucose level fall, they will secrete the glucagon. Glucagons, they will cause the liver cell, okay, to break down the glycogen, become the glucose, release the bloodstream. And also, adrenaline can add on the effect also. Because adrenaline, right, they can speed up the conversion of the glycogen become the glucose. So this is when the emergency situation happens, which require the fight or flight response. Okay, if in the normal situations, right, they will just stop until here only. But in the emergency situations, means that your muscle require more supply of the glucose. Okay, because they are increasing in the energy demand. You are still here, right? Okay, you're still here. Okay, so you need to differentiate the normal situation and the emergency situation. Because normal situation is just like in our situation currently, okay? Because now we are not in emergency situation, right? So that's why our glucagons just need to break down the glycogens, become glucose. That's all. Not require the help from the adrenaline. And then you increasing your blood glucose level back. So become normal blood glucose level. But what happened is your blood glucose level rise up. Okay, for example, after you just have a meal, okay? Whenever you just have a meal, right, your blood glucose level, they will increase. Maybe it's just about 1 hour. Okay, you can see, right, your blood glucose level is actually picking up. So the pancreas, they can release the hormones insulin. So the insulin, what they do is they can cause the liver and muscle cell to take out the glucose from the blood and then store become the glycogen. So now the glycogen will be stored inside the liver and muscle cell. Okay, and then glycogen, right, is insoluble. Actually, glycogen is a kind of the polysaccharide. I'm not sure if you still remember. You learn about polysaccharide in chapter 4. Okay, we have 3 types of polysaccharide: glycogen, starch, and cellulose. Those are insoluble. Okay, which is those are kind of like energy storage compound inside the cell. Okay, and then now we talk about diabetes, or another interesting topic. Okay, diabetes is very, very common. It's known as a common type of disease, especially in the Asian people. Okay, so diabetes, right? We have 2 types of diabetes. Okay, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 and type 2. Oh, here only talk about type 1 only. It's okay. You need to know that there will be 2 types of the diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Let me show you what happened to the diabetes is. Do I state it here? Let me show you diabetes. See, you can see the chapter 14, 学霸笔记. This one. See, this is a diabetes. You have type 1 and type 2. Okay, what happened to the type 1 diabetes is type 1 diabetes usually is an inherited condition. Means that the pancreas itself, okay, unable to produce insulin. Okay, pancreas unable to produce insulin. So due to the loss of beta cell, okay, this beta cell is referred to this pancreas, right? Actually, this pancreas, right? They have the alpha cell and beta cell. So alpha cell, they will produce the glucagons. Beta cell, they will produce the insulin. Okay, this is you will learn in A-level biology. Beta cell, they will produce the insulin. Alpha cell, they will produce the glucagons. But at this level, you just need to know that the pancreas will produce insulin and glucagon. That's all. So type 1 diabetes is because the issue happened at the pancreas. So because the pancreas itself unable to produce insulin. So if the pancreas cannot produce insulin, what will happen is the glucose, the blood glucose cannot be converted become the glycogen. Okay, so the blood glucose will just remain a very high level inside the bloodstream because they cannot be uptake by the receptor of cell. Yeah. And then how about type 2? Type 2 is because that the pancreas, right, is normal. Okay, pancreas is normal. They can take a function. They can produce insulin. Not like type 1. Type 1 is pancreas totally, they cannot produce insulin at all. But type 2, pancreas is just normal. They can produce insulin. But the problem is the insulin resistance happens. So what is meant by insulin resistance? It refers to like this is the receptor on the cell, right? This is receptor on the target cell. So what happens is if there's an insulin resistance, means that the receptor itself, receptor on the target cell become resistant to the insulin. Meaning that the receptor on the target cell, they do not respond to the stimulation by the insulin. Understand? They lost the sensitivity to the insulin stimulation. So even though the insulin, right, they are just binding to the receptor site on the target cell, but the target cell, they will not respond to it. So the glucose will not be uptake by the receptor cell. So this is called as an insulin resistant. Okay. So this type 2, right, is acquired. Acquired means that 后天性导致的, okay. So type 2 is usually being caused by maybe the diet, okay. The person, right, they do not have a very healthy diet. They always eat the very like high sugars, high fat, high carbohydrates diet. Yeah. So they will these are type 2 diabetes because insulin resistant. Insulin resistant we call as 胰岛素抵抗, okay, 胰岛素抵抗. So type 2 is acquired usually due to the lifestyle, which is excess carbohydrates or like unhealthy diets. Okay, how about type 1? Type 1 diabetes is usually inherited. Inherited means that the issue, right, usually is happen to the pancreas. Maybe the pancreas, they will have a cancer. Okay, maybe the pancreas, they will have requires inflammations. For example, like pancreatitis. Okay, pancreatitis refer to the pancreas itself. They will have the inflammation. Means that 胰脏发炎. Okay, pancreas, they will have the inflammation. So it will cause the pancreas unable to produce the insulin. Okay, go back to the notes. So the insulin secreting cell in the pancreas not able to produce insulin. So this will cause the blood glucose level they just remain elevated. So how you can treat this? You need to inject the insulin. You need to inject the insulin, okay? Because insulin injections. So this extra insulin, right, they will cause the liver. They're just acting like the normal insulin, which is they will convert the glucose, become glycogens, and then by this way, they can reduce the blood glucose level. So exam, they will ask you, what kind of symptom, okay, happens in the diabetes? The diabetes, right, they will bring symptoms such as thirsty, they'll feel very thirsty, weakness, and tiredness. Do you know why diabetes would make the people become thirsty, weakness, and tiredness? Something like blurred visions, weight loss, and the loss of consciousness is an extreme case. Means that the person, they will faint. Okay. It's because that you can just imagine that your body cell, right, require the glucose uptake. Okay, so maybe I can show in this picture. See, your body cell, they require the glucose uptake to do what? To do the cellular alveolar restrictions. Cell require. So yeah, they need to absorb glucose for the cellular alveolar restrictions. But if the diabetes happen, means the cell unable to uptake the glucose into the cytoplasm of the cell. So if they do not get the glucose, right, they will not have these cellular alveolar restrictions. Okay, so if no cellular alveolar restriction occur, there will be no more energy being released to the cell. So now your cell, they don't have energy. So if they don't have energy, can they continue to work? Definitely no. Okay, so cell, they will be very, very tired, lethargic, and hungry. Okay, so the patients with the diabetes, right, they'll become very weak, tiredness, weight loss, yeah. And then for information, diabetes, right, is a systemic disease. What's mean by systemic disease? Means that diabetes, they will not only affect one organ only. Means that they will not only affect your kidney, your intestine, no. It will cause a multiple effect to the multiple organs. So we call it systemic. This one, systemic. And if the patient's being diagnosed with diabetes, right? Do you think that the patient will recover from the diabetes? The answer is no. Okay, so you need to take care about your health. So because if the person, they get diagnosed with the diabetes, right? They only can use the insulin injections to try to reduce the severity of symptom. Because diabetes, right, they will cause the kidney to be injured. Okay, so this will be another story. But diabetes is an untreatable disease. You're not able to recover from diabetes. You just can control it only. Control it to prevent it become worse again. So if you get diabetes, right, you need to constantly monitor your blood glucose level. You need to do the activity, and also you need to have a healthy diet. You need to control your diet. Okay, so you need to eat the foods to avoid the large increase in the blood glucose level, and also you need to exercise. Okay, which can lower the blood glucose level due to increased respiration in the muscle. So this is what you can do if you get the diabetes. Okay, and then for this one, I think it's very interesting to let you know that you know what kind of food, right? They will not cause large increase in the blood glucose level. This is because the food with the low glycemic index. I share you this one. Food with a low glycemic index. This one. You can study about this. Okay, the food with a low glycemic index means that if you eat this food, right, your blood glucose level, they will not able to increase very fast. Maybe they can slowly increase only. Okay, if you eat the food with the high glycemic index, right, means that the blood glucose level, they will increase very fast, and they can drop down very fast. So they will cause a very large fluctuations to your blood glucose level. So we need to, we must avoid any fluctuations happen to the blood glucose level. So it's better if you have this one, because low glycemic food. So it's being recommended by the nutritionist, okay, for the diabetes patient. Okay, so I think that's all for today. Okay, so I will continue to mark your homework and then I'll get back to you. Okay, thank you. Hope you enjoy the class for today. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.